Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today is a rainy, cold day, and I'll show you what happened over here. I was putting away everything last night, and I was thinking all the tropical stuff has to go in the greenhouse because it was going to get quite cold at night. And I left my tray of acorns out here, my oak seedlings, and every acorn has been picked over by the squirrels. You can see the shells in here. You can see where they all were, and they're all gone. Eaten. Silly me. I just didn't think of bringing them in, and I lost them all. So I do have another bag of them around somewhere. I'll have to find them and I'll replant them. I've kept the heat on in the greenhouse and the fan, and it's nice and warm in there. You can see all the condensation. The temperature in here is about 20 degrees Celsius and about 80% humidity. So temperature-wise, a really nice room temperature. The humidity is really up there, so it's good. I'm trying to, encourage the growth of aerial roots on my ficus trees and my scheffleras. My aloe, that gets aerial roots. So yeah, everything's doing okay in here. I've been misting everything and waiting for a nice sunny day again. So I don't need to do any watering today. Everything's got a nice gentle rain today. And everything's coming along. The leaves are coming out on all the trees. The candles are growing on the pines. I'm refilling all the water barrels. This is my last one that has to fill up, my 5th one. So I'll have lots of water if we get a dry spell. It's the next day now. It stopped raining and the temperature is warmed up and it's t-shirt weather again. So let's begin today's work here in the Bonsai Zone. Today is going to be a real variety show. I've got several things I want to do. One, I want to get my pine here, my flat top pine. I want to sort out some of the branch structure. There's a lot of overlapping branches, and I just want to kind of get the top underway for styling. I've never, really done much to the styling of this tree on top yet. So we'll be doing that today. The other thing I want to do is way over here. I have my little spruce that's just starting to bud out, and I want to put that in a new pot. So I've got this 3D printed pot, Nigel Saunders 000, the very first pot of its kind. So I'm going to put my little spruce into that pot. It's quite a big pot, but I'm hoping to do maybe a bit of a landscape in the pot. And the third thing I want to do today is we'll come over here to the Osage Orange trees. So these are seedlings. This will be their second growing season. And you can see the buds are swelling on them. They're not out yet. Those are the thorns there. At the base of each thorn, there's a little bud. So I want to put those into this pot that's below. There's a mica pot there. It's an oval-shaped mica pot. And I want to arrange them like a forest and kind of get them underway. And these Osage Oranges, they'll progress. So last year I started them as seedlings. This year I'm going to arrange them as a forest planting. And then as they grow larger and larger, I'll be separating some of them and growing them as like single specimen trees. And, various uses for them. I've given a lot of them away. You can see this whole end of this seed tray has disappeared. So I'm just showing you that seedlings can be fun right from the start. So, the first year you see them growing, which is really exciting. Second year you can arrange them in a forest. You can keep them in the forest for the next few years and watch them grow and shape them. You want to let some of them grow tall and thick, and other ones you want to keep them pruned back so you get a variety of trunk sizes. So that's the last task for today. Quite an ambitious schedule, but I think I can do it. So let's get started. I've got the tree on the spinning tree bonsai turntable, So let's go in now and have a look at the existing branch structure. I'll rotate the tree around so you can see this branch structure up here. This is the present front of the tree. The back is also equally as nice, but so I'll rotate it around. So we'll go around to the right side. And hopefully you can see up underneath the tree. This is the back. And then around to the left side. So that kind of shows you the branch structure that's existing already. I'll also show you the root base. This is a root over rock composition. So this is the front. And we're coming around. You can see the roots going down over the rock, over to the right hand side, around to the back. So there's a lot of nice roots here coming down the back side. So that one might make a nice front. It certainly shows the roots off more than the other view, but I don't know. The other view, it kind of, you know, shows the few roots growing over the rock and hides the mystery of how the tree survives with all those thick roots at the back. So I don't know. So here's a view looking down at the tree now, and you can kind of see all the buds and branches in here. So looking from the front, I've got that one major trunk line that extends off to the right hand side, and that's kind of my wind-blown trunk line. And then the rest of it will form kind of flat top pads. So I probably don't want this one as thick here. There's a lot of possibilities. I mean, I could keep this as the trunk line and remove that branch and keep this as the major trunk line, that S shape. There's a lot of possibilities. I'll have to carefully look at the tree and think about them all. Here's the top of the tree, and I want it to be a flat top pine, but I don't want it to be dead flat on the top. I still want some shape and some branch separation. So I'm going to start today. There's some vertical shoots like this one right here sticking straight up. That I'll remove. There's another one here sticking straight up. There's another one here. So I'll remove those vertical shoots first, and then we'll have another look at it. Now, when I remove these vertical shoots, I have two options. I can cut them off completely, or I can leave some of the healthy needles and just prune it back really short. And I may get some more budding in that area, and you know, it may make a more compact flat top tree. So I'm going to do the second option, and I'm just going to prune it off short, leaving maybe 1, 2, 3, about 4 sets of needles. This is a double needle pine. It's a native red pine to Canada. So there goes that tip. And I'll do the same here to this vertical one. And then I'll come into this vertical one. Like that. And there's one here. Like that. And there's a nice vertical one back here. That can come off right here. Like that. So that's definitely got all my kind of upright shoots pruned back much shorter. Next, I want to come in and remove any kind of crossing branches. You can see in this area here, there's a lot of branches that are kind of crossing over top of each other. So I just want to clean the structure out so everything's kind of fanning out from the tree and they're not all crisscrossing and jumbled up on top. On deciduous trees, I'm always talking about getting that nice flow to the branches, smooth flowing lines. But on this pine, I don't want that. I kind of want the opposite. I want the branches to kind of be, you know, have sharp kinks in them and, you know, have that kind of zigzag pattern to the branches that you see a lot in the top of pines. So yeah, a little different pruning philosophy for this tree. Here's a top view looking down at the pine. So you can see Most of the branch structure is sorted out now when looking from above. There's no major branches overlapping each other. Maybe this one a bit, but it's not too bad. I probably could shorten that one a bit. But yeah, basically it's sorted out to a reasonable level. I'm looking at the pine from the front view now, and I think that's got it sorted out a little better. The next step I want to do is thin these clusters of candles. You can see at the tip here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 candles growing, and I just want 2. This tip I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 also. This tip I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I want to thin that to 2 candles, just so it doesn't waste energy growing branches that I won't be using, because you always want to divide a pine from 1 to 2. Otherwise you get a swelling at the junction if you have 5 branches coming off from one spot. There's a look at the structure from kind of below here. You can see a little more of what's going on. It looks quite natural. I'm quite happy with it. All right, I'm going to come in. Now, you can see on this tip here, I've got 2 kind of horizontal buds that would split the branch from 1 into 2 nicely. And then I've got 2 more buds that are more vertical. So I'll take out the vertical ones. Just pruning them off like that. There's one gone. And you have to be very careful doing this that you don't ruin your existing buds. So I'll come in from behind and take out that center bud like that. So there's the center one gone. So now I'm left with my 2 buds that can develop 2 branches. Now I'll come in and do the same here. So this one I've got 2 outer buds here and 2 growing up the top. So almost exactly the same as the other branch. So I'll take out this one. And I'll take out that center one. Like that. So now I'm left with my 2 buds each side. I'll finish doing my bud selection on all the remaining branches. I've got all the clusters of buds at the branch tips reduced to 2. So the next step, I'll let them elongate and then I'll pinch them back to balance the vigor on the canopy of the tree. Because I've pruned a lot of the branches back and I've opened up the top of the tree to the sun, I'll probably get a lot of back budding on the older wood this year, and that can further make my canopy more rounded and more compact. So it'll be interesting to watch it this summer and see how it all develops. That's got the first task on today's video completed. Let's go on to task number 2. The next task for today is to repot my little spruce into this 3D printed pot. I grew this spruce from a seed and I've been training it as a bonsai ever since. The first step will be to get the tree out of the pot. So I'll just grab it by the base and lift gently like that. Take the old pot away. And I'll examine the roots. So I don't see any white root tips, which means the roots aren't actively growing for this year yet. So it's quite safe to root prune it and, rake it out, root prune it. If you were seeing all kinds of white tips on the roots, that means they're growing and you maybe wouldn't want to do very much to the root system. If you break off all those white tips, then you're kind of setting the tree back. It's got to regenerate its new root tips and yeah, it's just not as good for the tree. All right, I've got my root rake and I'll start combing out from the center of the tree outwards in a radial fashion. This is just the perfect weather for repotting. It's slightly drizzling outside. It's warm. It's just, just perfect day. None of these roots will dry out in the sun or anything because it's cloudy. It's just, yeah, perfect day for repotting. There's quite a mat of roots in here, so I'll have lots of work to do combing. And I haven't really determined what size or style of this tree will be in finally, but For now, I'm just growing it in a triangular spruce form. You know, that's kind of the most common style for these trees. So over the years, I'll just see how it develops and kind of go with the flow of what's happening with the tree. But keeping it, you know, pruned so it'll eventually become a nice bonsai. The roots on a spruce are quite wiry, so you don't really have to worry about damaging them when you're raking. They're quite tough. I mean, you do have to be careful, but they're not, you know, fleshy, sensitive roots. You know, a lot of these roots are really tangled going around the edges of the pot. Do some raking from the bottom. There's my drainage screen. I've got that out. I've got a lot of the roots raked out now, and you can see the structure quite clearly. They're quite long. So the next step, I'll wash the roots so I can see them even better, and then start the root pruning. All right, into the dunk tank it goes. That looks good. I'm going to start the root work now. So I want to get a flat radial root base is my goal. So you can see I've got 2 horizontal roots there, one that started going down and I pruned it off before, and from that cut point I've got a lot of new roots that formed, and some of them are okay and some aren't so good. So I'm going to take off this vertical part here of that root. From here I've got a lot of roots that are what I call a pom-pom root, where you cut a thick root off and then you get a whole bunch of fine roots coming off of it. So I've got to pick my best ones. There's a crossing one, I'll take that out like that. You know, your eventual goal, just like your branches, is to have one root divide into 2, then 2 into 4, and 4 into 8, and so on. So in an ideal world, but you know, that's hard to achieve. So I'm going to cut off all the roots that are coming out the bottom of this root. So all these ones, keeping my more horizontal roots from the surface here. I've still got way too many roots here. I'm going to prune out this middle one like that. And I'll just do a little raking in that area. Okay, I think it's getting there. Just a little more off the bottom of this root system here. Okay, I can't do too much at once in this root base, but I do want to shorten all these really long roots. So and they're fairly fine roots, so they'll recover quickly from all this pruning. And then I'll come around to this other one on this side, and I'll cut it off where it starts going downhill here. That one. And I've got a curly root here. I'll prune that one off here. Getting, you know, keeping my best roots. Getting rid of the ones that aren't so good. I've got to shorten all this length underneath. So on the roots you can see some black ones in here, and those are the really fine roots, and they die over winter every year, and that's just natural on, you know, any hardy tree. Unless you keep the root system above freezing, you're going to get all those really fine roots die off. There's some roots growing back in towards the tree here. I'll prune those off. Alright, so I've got a root growing straight down that's not fanning out. I'll remove that one entirely, like that. So yeah, it's not the greatest root system, but then, you know, I'm starting from a seed. There's another root here. I've got, you know, this is the plane of my roots up here, but I've got one down lower that I can't do much. I'll just prune part of it off. I'll prune some of these lower ones off. So I've got, you know, some roots fanning outwards. Nah, that one's just no good here. I gotta prune that one off there. It's just curling around the pot, that one. Gotta get rid of all those curly ones. Those two I think I can sort out as I'm repotting. Yeah, I don't think I can do much more. I'll plant it. Hopefully something will grow out this side. But, you know, that's probably as much as I can do for today. Not the greatest root system in the world. There is one that's coming off high on the trunk here. I don't know if that was a branch or a root. But I'll get rid of that one today. Like that. Alright, it's time to plant the tree now. I've cut out a drainage screen that fits nicely in the bottom of the pot here. So I can add a layer of soil. Alright, here I go with the layer of soil on the bottom of the pot. Like that. I think that's a good height for planting the tree on top of. Alright, it's time to plant the tree now. So this will definitely be the front. It's got the best root system. And I'll want to plant the tree off to one side in the pot. Maybe here. I'll put it to the left-hand side. So I'll comb the roots out the best I can. I guess about like that. I can't do a whole lot more with this root system at this moment. At this stage, I've just got to let them develop more. So I can start adding the soil now. I think, you know, that planting location looks good. So here I go with some soil. Trying to keep all these roots sorted out over here. Like that, that's good. And I'll add some soil in behind here, where we want roots to grow for sure. And that's holding the tree in there. Now, so the tree is looking nice and vertical. Just got to get all these roots and all the soil worked into the roots here. And the tree will firm up in the pot once I get all these air pockets filled with soil. So they're surrounding all the roots. The soil's nice and dry, so it's flowing in around the roots really easily. The tree's feeling quite firm. So I'll add some more soil, kind of level off the pot here. And I'll build it up a little more around the base of the tree. Like that. Keep those roots nicely tucked away under the soil level. I have a little bit of pine bark, you know, decomposed pine bark mixed in this soil. Not much of it, but just a little bit. I think that'll help the spruce along. Okay, that's feeling really good, nice and firm in the pot. So I am ready to water the tree. All right, here I go with the water. And I think that'll do. I've got a handful of flat rocks here that I can place on top of the soil, and that'll help hold the tree in place, and it also stops evaporation from the surface of the soil. So It kind of serves a double purpose after repotting. So that should do it. The tree's all set to grow. Here's a look at the tree now. I'll rotate it around. I think some rocks like this could possibly make it into the final landscaping. Combination of rocks and moss. But it's too early to do all that work yet. We've got to get the tree established in the pot and then we can work on the landscape. So I'll rotate it around now. There's the right side, the back, left side, and back to the front of the pot. My last little project for today will be to plant all the Osage Orange seedlings into a forest arrangement. So let's do that now. I've got the Osage Oranges out on the bench, and I've got my mica pot that I'll be planting the forest in. And the first step will be to remove all the trees from the old soil and put them in water and then root prune them. I'll remove the seedlings one at a time and put them in the water. So I think I'll just have to kind of pull them. So you can see they have a really long taproot, so I'll just be reducing that back today and planting them. There's quite a variety of sizes, from small to some fairly large ones. And this happens just naturally, that just like children, every little seedling's different. These seedlings were started in bonsai soil and they've grown really well. They've got a nice root system. I think every tree survived. They just did amazing. I've got to be careful because they have thorns on them. Now I don't know how many seedlings I have here, but probably, oh, I don't know, maybe 50 to 100. There's a lot. Here's a big tall one here. Most roots can sit in a bucket of water for several days. There's enough oxygen in there to keep the roots happy. You don't want to keep them in there too long, but you know, 2 or 3 days is no problem. So when you have this many seedlings, it's good to experiment around with your root pruning. You want to root prune some severely, some moderately, and some lightly, and then you kind of get an idea for what lived and what worked. Maybe they'll all live, but the ones that you severely root pruned have a nicer root system next time you go to repot them. So it's good to experiment around, and you learn that way. If you root prune every tree the same way, then you know you don't really learn as much. And that goes with pruning and everything. You've got to experiment around and find the best technique for each particular tree. Especially when you're dealing with, you know, species that aren't as popular like these Osage Oranges. They're not quite as popular as bonsai, so it's hard to get information on them. So you've just kind of got to develop your own techniques. The root system looks really healthy on these. I kept them in the basement over winter. I brought them in fairly early, so they didn't see the real extreme cold temperatures. I kind of treated them like you would a Japanese maple. Kind of, you know, not letting them go much below about -5 degrees Celsius. So not that far below freezing. And the reason I did that is that these trees are native to this region, but this is like the northernmost tip of their native range. So you're getting up into, you know, Ontario here, where I am. It's kind of like their northern tip of their range, and it's because the weather starts getting too cold for them. So that's the reason I kind of babied them through the winter a bit more than I would a hardier tree. just because I don't know how well they would have survived out on the bench, you know, once it gets below minus 10 degrees Celsius. I'll get a drainage screen in the bottom of the pot, get a layer of soil in here, and then I'll take one tree out at a time, root prune it, and plant it as a forest. I'm going to cut out one large drainage screen for the bottom of the pot, just because it makes it easier to lift the forest out next time I go to repot it. It kind of holds the forest together. It is starting to rain out here, so that's fitted nicely for the bottom of the pot. Covers all the drainage holes. Now I can put a layer of soil in there. I'm really excited about getting these Osage Oranges going as bonsai. They're a really cool tree, and as they mature they get a really nice bark on them, kind of a striped bark, just like an orange tree or a citrus tree. So yeah, it's quite exciting to get them going. The seeds were sent to me, and I really appreciate the gift. It was really nice. I just couldn't find any in our area. My procedure will be to take each tree out of the pot of water and then do some root pruning. So in this case, I'm going to remove the taproot on the bottom, like that. I'll do a quick profile prune, just removing some of the longer roots to kind of balance the root system, and then I'll plant it. And that's all I'll do for now. And then, you know, slowly over the years, I'll get the radial root base perfected. So this can be planted in the pot, and I'll build up my larger trees on this side, kind of an asymmetrical triangle. So this is my largest tree, so I'll put it front and center in the pot. I'll rake out the root system. Getting them nice and radial. And then I'll put some soil on top just to hold it in the pot in that spot, like that. On to tree number 2. And I'm kind of picking my largest trees first. So here's another one. I'll come in, and I want all these trees to be straight. I don't want them slanting and that, so I like straight trees. It's just my thing. So I'm trying to decide, this root comes down on an angle, so I think I'll take it off here and see if I can develop that radial root system. Comb the roots out, and then I'll plant it in behind here, raking those roots out. And putting some soil to hold it in place. I'll repeat this procedure 50 to 100 times, depending how many trees I have, until the whole pot is planted as a forest, and then we'll come back and have a look at it. So it is raining here now. I've got the camera under cover, and I'm under cover, so I can still work away at the forest and get it all planted. There's quite a variety of root systems on the trees. And I'm just kind of sorting them out the best I can for now. I'll have to rake that one a bit. Like that. So I won't be pruning the top of the trees this year. I'll just let them grow, because my priority is I won't be pruning the top of the trees this year. I'll just let them grow. My priority is to grow the root system and get those established. And then probably the next year I'll be pruning the tops of the trees to get branching and get that kind of asymmetrical rounded profile to the top of the forest. And then maybe a couple of years from there, I'll be digging them up and root pruning them again, and just slowly refining them over the next couple of decades. I've got all the trees planted except for 2. I didn't use these ones because they have kind of a, I don't know if you can see it, a curly trunk on them. So I just didn't think they'd be suitable for bonsai. So yeah, but all the rest are planted. So now I'll give it a water. I've got the forest planted in 2 sections. So my main forest is here. I've got kind of a pathway through the center, and then the other side of the forest over here. This being the highest ground, and then this being a little lower. So I'm going to give it a watering now. I've left a little space out the front of the planting, you know, so it doesn't look so crowded in the pot. All right, here I go with the water. A few of the trees at the back, I kind of planted them as a clump. So we'll see how that develops. So that is well watered. So there's my forest now. From seed to a bonsai forest in just a year. A lot of growing to go, but a fun project. I'm really glad I got these Osage Oranges underway as bonsai trees in their first steps with a bit of root pruning in their 2nd year of growth. That's all the work I'll be doing on this wet but warm spring day. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.